G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute, joined this week by Algared. How you doing, buddy?
I'm tired. It's been a long day, but yeah, otherwise pretty good.
You're looking very formal today, like Principal Algared. You've been
No, this is just standard standard teaching attire.
been out there
I'm
disciplining
surprised
some see, you've done it to me now. Young whippersnappers. Yeah.
the only change was I took off a name badge and put the constellation on there, fly the colours. But what I was living dangerously because it's a green shirt and a green tie. So green shirt, green tie, and green screen.
So yes, no, we got it fixed though, so it's fine.
We did. We didn't notice the speckling when we first started, but it's looking pretty sharp now.
So we were talking that we've got the Citizencon around the corner. We're currently in the middle of Ship Showdown, so we're getting towards that end of the year shenanigans that you and I have to put up with every year.
Yep. The busy time.
Yes, the busy times. But yeah, so we've obviously got 4 unannounced ships on the roadmap. Now, I did a show this weekend with Paul and Space Tomato, and we talked about those ships, and it kind of prompted me to go a bit deeper with you on them, and here we are. So if you actually, as I said, look at the roadmap, there are 4, and basically doing a little bit of very logical thinking, they've now said that they don't want to put ships in game if they don't have their associated gameplay. And so,
and the classic poster child for that is the reclaimer. They put the reclaimer in, it looks awesome, and then everyone goes, "But what can I use it for?" You can use it for cargo hauling, but it's a bitch to land because it's not really a ship, but should be landing on planets. So,
so based on that, we can look at the things coming down the pipe, and we can kind of go, well, what are some of the ships that we could expect at this year? So, I guess based on that,
we have a look at the roadmap and see what they're actually working on, and from that we go, okay, they're working on this, so that might mean.
So you mentioned the reclaimer, and we know as one of the more recent ISCs that the Vulture and it are getting hull stripping. So I think it's a pretty safe bet that we could potentially also be getting a 3rd salvage ship.
And I think one of the things we've always said in the past is CIG had said, when the Vulture comes out, you'll get that as a loan ship for the reclaimer because it can't do anything. But I think if a reclaimer gets the hull stripping as well, I would question whether they will still feel the need to give a reclaimer a Vulture as a loan ship, as a loaner.
Yeah, I don't think they would, but unfortunately it's really annoying at the moment to get the reclaimer anywhere, because besides Grimhex, it's the only place in space that you can spawn it, so it's basically a living nightmare at the moment. I'd hope at least for the first patch that they would give you a Vulture as a loaner, just so you can, I don't know, less bit of a struggle. But I won't hold my breath.
They might still do that. They might still give you a loanership. It's just one of those things. But I wouldn't be. But if they don't give her a loanership for it because it's got hull stripping, it makes sense.
So in regards to a new salvage ship, Algared, what would you like it to be? We did talk about this a little bit before the show.
We did.
I think the other thing I'd get you to throw on there is manufacturers. We've also got Aegis and Drake. So I'm kind of looking at it with my industrial hat on, and I'm thinking Argo and Misk and maybe even Sinu.
I could certainly see Misk. They are. I think, what is it? Misk heavy industry, and they do have a heavy industry section. I'd like to have, if Drake didn't have the Vulture, I'd have said Drake.
Yep.
Because where they're based, they've got salvage yards and other things. So whether you see them as a pirate company or not, they're a company that at least uses salvage as their front. And if you're a pirate and you're doing a chop shop, what better front have you got than a salvage yard?
Well, it's like
salvage. All of that makes sense.
Salvage itself is probably seen as a bit beneath some people, as in because it's kind of like recycling and stuff. Like I don't think you'd ever see an Origin recycling ship.
Think it's. No, they might recycle gold and silver and platinum. But I don't see them recycling.
How
I
would
don't see them doing
you
recycling.
how would you feel about an alien ship? Because like honestly, if I think alien, the Vandal would be a good salvage, you know, with the nomadic type part of the Vandal.
I don't, yeah, but I
Not
don't
not
see
that we
them as
would
being salvages.
not that we would see that as a ship right now, but like if the Vandal ever did, you know, if we could buy industrial base ships from the Vandal, I think that would be a very good species for it. But I don't think we'll ever see that. Not for a while anyway.
I get the impression the Vandal are more your strip miners.
Mm,
So they strip mine and then they chuck it all in their factory and then build the stuff they want.
mm.
But the race it comes across to me as a salvage race, but Banu.
Oh, yeah.
They take from
Yeah.
everyone and they take the best bits, the bits that they like best, and they incorporate that
True.
technology into their ships. And so for me, that basically a more logical choice.
I'll give you that. That could work.
You know, so
So, all right, well, let's have a look at it then, because you've got at one end you've got the Vulture,
yeah,
and at the other end you've got the Reclaimer. And one of the things we're talking about is like with the Vulture, you've got to blast it apart. With the Reclaimer, you can cut it apart with lasers. Then the other parts that are missing from the Reclaimer to the Vulture is obviously the processing, and the claw. So
what things what does the Vulture do? It basically does hull stripping. And then if you want to do any more than that, you've got to manually get out, as I understand it, place your charges, blow it up into smaller bits, and then
you kind of
those smaller bits.
So once it's blasted apart, you then pull it in with the tractor beams on either arm, and they're stripped off. And then when they get once that's been stripped off, the last part flows in, and that's munched up, chucked into the back, and it's trash compacted and turned into cubes. Where something like the Reclaimer,
just to clarify the components
just let me finish.
On the Vulture.
Just let me finish. So once it's goes into the Reclaimer though, it's actually processed and not just packed up. So that Vulture actually has to be taken back and processed. So there's an extra step in the Reclaimer over the Vulture.
So in terms of the components on the Vulture, you've got tractor beams, the stripping tool, and a compactor.
Yes. Oh,
on the
Muncher,
and then
Muncher compactor. Yeah.
Okay. On the Reclaimer though, we've got the tractor beams.
Yep.
Lasers.
Yep.
The claw.
Yep.
Drones.
Yep.
Processing,
which is the
processing, crunching, munching, and sorting.
Yep.
And we've also got the little shuttle ship, whatever they make that little.
The cutter.
Skiff.
Yep.
The cutter. Whatever they make the cutter into, it's got one of those as well. So that's basically everything. So when you look at all those components and then the components in the Vulture.
Yeah. So I think it's more manual process in the Vulture, because I think the cutter, you and I have talked about the cutter at length, right?
Yep.
So the cutter seems to be the thing that goes in and gets the components and brings them out, as far as we can ascertain. Where
that or the drone. So
it means you manually have to kind of go in and do that on your own. So yeah, the drones could be also used for salvage, but as you said, they could also be used for component recovery. So yeah, it's just interesting to see where that's going to go. So yeah, I would say probably the next ship up from the Vulture looks like it might actually use the lasers, so you don't have to get out. And then I'd say the ship above that probably adds the drones. Yeah,
and so when you're looking at those ships, you're going to be adding something to what the Vulture's got, but you're also going to be making sure that it doesn't do everything that the Reclaimer does. So what we're saying is Vulture's the first step, apart from hand mining or hand salvage. Reclaimer's the end step. And then there are ships that fit in the middle. And so if there's one ship, then it just does everything in between. If there's two ships, then they're going to have those added extras split between them and be increasing as they go.
I'd assume the big difference for the Reclaimer is the processing and sorting part of it. You know, what originally was seen as refineries, you know, because that salvage, it'll still process the metal ready to be sent to a refinery ship, but it won't have the volatility that a mining ship will, because it's recycled. It's already in that state of non-volatility, so it doesn't need a refinery anymore.
But the beautiful thing with that is it's sorting the metals out or the materials out, then
Yeah.
you don't have to, as much melting or stripping of other bits.
So that's probably, as you've just very eloquently put out, probably even those cubes, when they're sent and sold off, they're probably sold off as unsorted or something like that, and they have to be broken down and sorted and then refined at a refinery. Yeah, I'd agree with you.
Whereas your reclaimer will probably, simply because it's got the sorting bins and the rest of it, it will probably be able to less sorting or less refining or less breaking down and that of material. So anything that saves you on the cost of refining is going to make your profit margins high. So
yeah, I'd like to know in the comments what manufacturer do you think that could be, guys? Because I'm thinking Argo, and I'm Consolidated Outland, as I said. And
sorry, hang on. I've got to take a line from what you and Paul on Space were saying the other day. Kruger.
Oh, you saw that episode, did you? I was as soon as I heard it, I just could hear you in the background. But anyway, yeah.
Yep.
So we'll move on then. So the next one is one that me and Algared have actually talked about before. Back when we were talking about the mule, we talked about the raft and how it's got those big cargo crate containers, and we said it'd be really cool if there was like a truck that could carry those. And I later thought that, well, it could be more than just a truck for that. If you put a tractor beam on that truck, it could be a tow truck. It could actually pick up pieces of salvage. So it very quickly became a utility truck.
Yeah.
And I thought, you could put ships on the back. You could put cyclones on the back. Very useful. Algared, you want to say?
Yeah. Look, if you've got a large truck that can, that's got a large bed but wouldn't be able to carry a cargo crate, one of the big cargo crates, not a little cube, then that gives you the ability to take those. But if it's long enough, you've also got the ability to literally be a recovery vehicle for ballistas or cyclones or Ursas or or any of the land vehicles or even a Nova tank. Because driving a vehicle up to those and then pulling it out is certainly, I would imagine, would be less expensive than flying the ship against Atmo to tractor it and haul it back. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe it wouldn't be an issue, but to me, it would be a smaller target. It would be less fuel. So
there's a lot of just like the Salvage one. There's a lot of different manufacturers there too. The usual suspects when it comes to industry, like Argo, Misk, Grey Cat in this instance as well.
Yep.
Okay.
I could definitely see Grey Cat for a land vehicle, definitely, because just based on what they do, they as part of their history, the guy who was designing the stuff was working in mines, and our little Grey Cat was, because he stuffed up and people got killed on his watch, and he created a little vehicle for you to be able to travel through the mine shafts, and the company went, these are actually really cool. We can drive around these in the factory.
Do you know what
then they were sold off to people who had big hangars.
I'm just sitting here thinking too, about an alien one, because I always check the alien stuff in there now.
Yep.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I could be totally putting my thumb in here, but we don't have a land vehicle by the Banu, do we? Or am I mistaken?
I don't believe we got a land vehicle from the Banu. We don't have a land vehicle from the Tavaran either. Unless you count the Prowler.
But I kind of do lean more towards the Banu for this one, for the same reasons, because of the moving of cargo, the Banu Merchantman, stuff like that, if I was to pick an alien one.
Yep, and the fact that, as we were talking before the show, the Banu do work as, they take the best from what they feel is the best from everywhere, and then put it together. So I could see them being a salvage-minded race. Whereas the Vandal would be your Hurstons. They have strip mine everything and just take it. So.
Yeah, I think I'll ask the comments there as well. I'll do that for all of these. What do you think would be a good utility truck manufacturer? Is there one we've missed there? So yeah. All right, and then obviously the opposite of salvage is repair. Now we know this is coming down the pipe because the Crucible's on the roadmap. So there, like when I thought of this, they could definitely be doing a concept
Mm.
sale for another repair ship. We currently have the Vulcan, which we know is very drone focused,
Yeah.
but it's also, it's supply. What is it? Resupply.
Supply, repair, rearm. But
Yeah,
every
three
one of
R's.
those activities is drone orientated. There's not,
Mm,
if you're rearming, you're rearming by drones. If you're refueling, you're refueling by drones
mm.
currently. If you're repairing, you're repairing by drones in that ship.
Yeah, so I think a
And if
real obvious one for this is because of the vehicles on the roadmap. I think it really looks like it might be tailored more at vehicles this
hmm,
one around. And I've said this before, a flying garage that just lands and you can have the vehicles drive up into it, because that seems to be a market that seems to be a little bit open. If you do,
yep.
you can technically do it with the Crucible, and you can technically do it with the Vulcan. Um, but yeah, like when the Scarab is really designed to hold a Hornet, it really is kind of already at that level, and it can
Hmm.
go higher. So I'm trying to think of that seems to be a
But
market it could corner.
and with the Crucible, it's got the nozzle, so it doesn't. Even though it does have drones, it doesn't need the drones to be able to work. Whereas, from what I understand of the Vulcan, sorry,
Mm,
is the Vulcan needs to have its drones to be able to function.
yeah, and it limits what the drones can do. Where if you build a ship that's a garage, you obviously can't have ships go into the garage, so it actually limits it going up into the Crucible space. But the
But
Crucible being so much larger and having to come down to planet and costing fuel, that limits it going into the space of the middle ship. So I think
yeah,
it all works out nicely.
and I think the first repair ship, I think Paul may end up being right.
Mm.
You might remember when we were talking
The
about
smaller
the
one,
repair ship.
yeah, we talked about this. We actually talked about there being a repair vehicle as well. There is
Mm,
room there for a repair vehicle,
but
100%, and that's where that actually led into the tow truck and utility truck thing. So,
but
yeah,
Paul argued there was a place for a smaller repair ship than the Vulture, because back in the day, than the Vulcan, because it was a medium ship,
mm.
even though it was kind of the industry starter.
I think that's a hand tool, personally, because what's smaller
Yeah.
than a drone? The hand tool. It's the only way
Well,
down. You know.
you could have a ship that literally just does the reverse of the scraping.
Mm.
So a vulture-esque,
That is kind of
instead of
what
scraping, it's
that's what the drone is, though. The drone is basically a step up from hand tools. So
but
there's not really much
but
where it
the
can go.
but the problem with the drones is we know the drones aren't coming out anytime soon. And so even though repairs coming, if drones aren't coming out anytime soon, that means
Would
even
you
if
really want
repairs
there to
come,
be a ship? Would you
The
really
Vulcan
want?
doesn't come.
Would you really want there to be a ship that's temporarily just there while there are no drones, and then when the drones come out, it's kind of redundant and useless, though? Yeah. So I don't think that'll happen. So yeah, I think the two
Well,
that are
never say
most
never, but
I think the two that are most likely is like a repair truck, which is probably an offshoot of the utility truck we mentioned before, and most likely the garage. But manufacturers, Algared, what manufacturers do you think that are left? Considering we've kind of got Anvil and Aegis, which is our two big military boys.
I don't see them. Well, I could see them doing salvage vehicles, but mainly because the military have,
Not
their,
salvage,
their recovery vehicles.
not
Well,
salvage. They're
having the repair, but I could see them doing that because they have their recovery vehicles, so pulling stuff off and repairing them, or being able to strip the parts off so they can repair other stuff. But based on the way everything else is done, I don't really see them doing that. Again, it comes down to the stock standard. I think industry companies, Drake, MISC. I could even see RSI.
that's what I was
So
thinking of.
any of those industry companies, I could
Yeah.
see doing it, but I don't see the military companies doing it.
Well, RSI is the only other kind of really military one in there, and considering the other two are very heavily military based, RSI does seem like a logical choice, just based on what's already there.
And RSI, because of their long breadth of history, they've got their hand in every pie. So
Yeah,
they've got the biggest mining ship that we can own.
kind of makes sense too with
Um,
the racing and the Ursa
yeah.
and stuff like that. I tell you what would be really cool, and I'm not going to hold my breath though, and I'll probably get shot for saying this, but I actually, because of the racing stuff, I think Origin could be a good choice for a repair vehicle. You know, like that's tailored at the racing end, so they
Yeah, so
actually
yeah,
really tailor the ship at like the Origin race ship. You know, like the race garage. You know, for the and
yeah,
you could literally have Jax McCleary like really sell it. You know, because
yeah.
it's you know the
Look,
Top Gear type of thing.
yeah, Top Gear, and you know the Stig,
Mm,
um, you know, selling off the racing garage. Absolutely.
mm,
You know, a luxury garage and hab for your race crew.
mm.
Absolutely.
Because at the moment, it really is kind of like a smaller version of the Liberator if you kind of play it
Mm,
through in your head. Um, you know, where you, but it's more like akin to what's your biggest vehicle at the moment, like a Ballista or
yeah,
a Nova Tonk. It basically can hold just one of those, and that's it. And it's basically got the repair arms off the Crucible, but like a smaller version of it. So
yep.
I'd say there's probably a especially if you can include like a bed and that on it. So maybe it's got like a bed for the pilot and a bed for the pilot of the other vehicle, if you know what I mean. So it's like
Yeah.
a two-person cruise ship.
And like I've actually in the past used the Phoenix as a prize for the Crux Cup because and build it as, you know, your own ship hangar.
Mm,
You know, your race crew take your ship to the races rather than flying your ship to the race.
mm,
It becomes the crew quarters, the racing quarters, the headquarters, the repair shop, and other stuff. And the Crucible would fit into that role as well because but it's more industry. But certainly a luxury version of repair specifically for that high-end racing. Absolutely, yeah, I could see that.
Actually, while I'm thinking of it too, something else that's been often on the roadmap, and it's because you mentioned luxury, is the Lynx. That's been on the roadmap twice this year and removed. So that could be
Yep.
another little bonus extra one in there that might crop
Will,
in as well.
will the Lynx actually be able to go on the buggy race? No, because
What do you see that as? Just as in your point of view, because you are someone that owns it, and I know you were really critical of the Phoenix, but you still own it. What do you see it as? Because when I look at it, I kind of look like when I was talking about this with Paul and Space, I basically said I pictured the Ursa, but basically, you know how you've got the two seats at the front? It just has
yep,
four more, so two rows of two behind them, and it's kind of like an all glass rooftop, almost like a
a viewing capsule.
yeah, like a Sunday drive. You know the balls in Jurassic Park that rolled through
Yeah,
that, but a six-person car. You know, so
yeah. When they first brought it out, I'd have seen it as a slightly heavier transport. Whether it had better armor or whether it had a high grade weapon, based on, you know, this is before even the Ursa came out, because the way they sold the Phoenix was it was the up armored, you know, special high grade everything. You know, it had supposed to have more size 2 missiles than
yeah.
than the Andromeda, and it got that by getting rid of the size 1s and just replacing them. You know, so
Well,
it was supposed to have the point defense turret. It was supposed to have more power plants. So to power those extra things it had, and it was supposed to have better armor.
well, that's kind of what I see touring as. It's more of
Yep.
a Sunday drive type of analogy rather
But
than
a Sunday
actually.
drive isn't needing up armored and souped
When
up
when you're
stuff.
exploring, you go somewhere and it's got a bit of science and it's got a bit of exploration and
Yeah,
finding stuff. Where the touring is more like going and having a look. So
yeah. You're going to those areas we don't see
well,
often.
and that's why I said it kind of like
Yep,
the spheres in Jurassic Park. You're going and having a
yep,
look, but you're not putting
yep.
yourself in danger. You know, you're just going to have a look and that's it.
So yeah, so based on how they originally sold it, I'd have thought it would have been an up armored Ursa.
Mm,
But based on what they did with the P-72, which was again supposed to be a more up armor, a better version of the P-52, they stripped off the main gun. They put an extra 2 size 1 laser, you know, gimbaled lasers on it, and they called it a racing ship.
mm.
So actually, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Ursa is a souped up racing variant.
Okay. I I
So
I'd expect the Lynx to be more like a a shielded, armored, super safe, rolling kind of Rolls Royce type thing with a with a glass cab for you to see stuff. And I'd probably even remove the gun, remove the gun because it doesn't really need it. It's more about just getting them out of there and back to safety.
Yeah, and I would like to have seen it do something like that, or have, rather than have a gun for shooting, it's got a point defense turret, an automated defense turret for shooting down missiles or that type of thing. But
that makes sense. So like a point defense.
Yeah, so
that makes
it's got a point
sense.
defense rather than a pew pew for targeting things. It's just point defense that'll automatically shoot down missiles that are coming at it.
Or an anti-flare defense. I don't know what you call that, but yeah, you get what I'm going with that. So,
but so you've got that. You'd have that type of stuff. So yeah, I could see that, but it'd be not. Just having the links would be nice.
All right, so last but not least, obviously, if you've kind of thought this through, you kind of tend to know now they tend to do a ship that's at the 3 different price points. That kind of leaves the last big one left. So obviously there's some kind of capital there, or large ship that's probably missing from this lineup. I know the last few years that we've all been hoping for an Anvil capital ship. Not going to hold my breath this year, but the fact that I'm holding my kind of like that, it probably will come now. You don't want to say
you're holding your breath, but effectively you're holding your breath because
yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. So it might come this year, not. But if it was an Anvil, what would some capital ship manufacturers you'd like to see? I'll put that to you. I know one I can think of straight off the bat, but and I'll throw this to you. Argo. How would you like to see an Argo capital ship?
I would love to see an Argo capital ship.
I'd
love to see more Argo.
I instantly thought of the one that I call the Nebula gas miner.
Yeah,
was one I thought of. From Argo, yeah. So, what would you like to see?
Yeah, I think I'd like. I think I'd like to see anything from Argo. To be honest, I'd like to see what would be really good as a proper carrier.
I for some reason now want to see you in a pair of Argo pants. Argo pants by Algared. Anything by, and it just is right across the arse. Anything by Argo.
Cargo.
Yeah, cargo pants.
Yeah. So I'd like to see. I wouldn't mind seeing, not necessarily a carrier in terms of the usual sense of a carrier, but a large version of a transport ship, that almost a transport slash.
It's funny you said that, because that's what Paul said, and then I brought up the Jupiter, and he says he reckons CIG just will never make that. Which is unfortunate.
I could see that. I'd love them to do that. I'd love them to do the Jupiter in lore. But and I know from the video he was talking, but but we'll never make the Jupiter because it needs to be able to carry. It would need to be able to carry 6 of their shuttles, and the shuttles their shuttles are basically their taxi buses we see around Crusader. And that would be bloody huge.
It would.
But
like we said, if it's built in that way where it's more of a carry rig, do you remember when we talked about that being a carry rig? Yeah.
But also, it is an older ship, so it's their older shuttles. So were their shuttles smaller back in the day? And would you, so yes and no. But I think we certainly need more of a transport ship.
If I kind of think of this a different way, Algared, you've basically, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm pretty sure I'm wrong here, right? Crusader, Argo, Anvil are the only ones we don't have capitals from that are in that. I could be mistaken.
And Kruger.
Well, I know you're going to say Kruger, but Kruger, they're more of a weapons manufacturer.
They are a weapons manufacturer. That is their key goal. And the P-52 was made to show proof of concept. Hey, we can build a ship.
If you want to go that far, we can chuck in almost every weapon manufacturer into that mix as well, that don't have a capital ship.
Well,
I want
to. Well, now Execute. In that case, I would say that Hurston need to have a capital ship.
Hurston slave ship coming to.
now Execute. We don't have slaves. Every one of our workers have signed a workers' contract.
Yeah, it's called the Death Camp or something like that. I don't know what they'll call it, but
No, no, no. Even the Nazis didn't have contracts with their prisoners. So
oh dear.
You, Paul, and everyone else continually trying to badmouth the Hurstons. You know,
This
you're
is
as
going
bad as Dave Haddock. You
is
guys are as
going
bad as Dave Haddock.
It's going down a very bleak park. Let's turn this around. So
You
but
guys always besmirch the Hurston name. Even Dave Haddock does it. You know, you're.
So we've
Old
got
man Hurston turns over in his bed.
So besides Crusader, Argo, and I've now forgot Anvil.
And
is there any others?
Yep.
Okay, I'll chuck Kruger in there then as well. But besides those, is there any others that you can think of that don't have a capital at this point?
I'm sorry, I got to cut in there. Are there any others? You just made me think of the Monty Python sketch for what have the Romans ever done for us? Sorry, it just yeah.
So we've got RSI, we've got the Polaris, we've got
RSI,
we've
got the Polaris and the Bengal.
Yeah, and they've also got the Miska's got the Odyssey, so they've technically got a capital now too.
Aegis have got the Idris.
Yep, and then you've got Kraken for Drake. So as far as I'm aware, that's it. 890 jump. 890 jump. Origin have got that.
Got Origin, and Misk have the
Endeavour too. Yep.
The Endeavour.
Yep. So yeah, I think we're.
The only one that's left is.
We could technically go Asperia, but are they really going to bring out an alien capital? Don't say it anytime soon.
It doesn't. No. Well, don't just assume that Asperia do alien ships. They actually started off going through the old records and archiving all the old ships and then building old ships for the fun of it. So.
Well, you've hit on something
they could build the Zeus because that'd be the type of thing they would do. They could build.
Yeah. So in the monthly report, they actually they showed off a spacesuit that looks almost like akin to today's spacesuit. Looks like a modified version of the really big puffy ones.
Yep.
But that's the type of thing that people wore in the Zeus. So they could bring out the Zeus by Asperia or some kind of a collaboration between RSI and Zeus.
Yep.
But the question I asked to you, Algared, is what role does that have in the game? What possible use do you have for a ship that's essentially just an A to B vehicle? It's not a race variant.
It is a transport. It takes people. It's a taxi. And I could see, to go back to the idea of that carrier transport ship, unlike a capital version of that, unlike the Liberator would actually have beds to economy beds, so you could actually take your passengers with you, the crew with you.
So for the sake of argument, it's a smaller Genesis Starliner,
but not as fancy. Yes.
How many people are you thinking? So you got pilot, co-pilot, and the co-pilot also plays engineer. How many people? 8? So a total of 10 people on one ship.
Yeah. Well. Yeah, I'd probably say that. If you look at the 890 jump, it's got 7 crew beds, and it's got 5 cabins.
I'm thinking it wouldn't be super comfortable. I'm thinking like you've probably got.
No, it wouldn't be luxury. So 890 jump is the super luxury version. You're talking economy.
Pilot, co-pilot, door behind them, and then literally 8 seats, and then 8 bunk beds behind them, and then a kitchen and toilet in the back.
And I wouldn't say bunk beds, but maybe the capsule beds like on the.
Oh, you mean like escape pods?
Yeah, like on the RSI, RSI escape pod.
They're bunk beds, but yeah, okay, sure.
rather than the pull down bunks that you see on Drake.
I just meant bunk beds like on the Constellation.
So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So and then the escape pod one. So yeah.
And then at the back you'd have a toilet and kitchen, and that's it.
Yeah.
Really bare bones. And maybe a very small cargo hold that holds their luggage or something like that. Yeah. But even that seems very big for that ship already. Because that ship, if you've seen that
and
ship,
you maybe even you go 5 passengers or 6 passengers, so and they're literally just passenger beds, or passenger units.
All right, so guys, let us know in the comments below. What do you think of the ones we've kind of suggested today? We have been in a couple of little tangenty ones in there. But yeah, let us know your thoughts and suggestions. Remember, this is the key thing to why we pick up on these ones, is these are things they're currently working on.
Yeah.
So if you come
We
out to
don't
me
know exactly what they're working on.
and you go into the comments and go, I reckon there'll be a science ship, I'm going to just slap you, because they're not working on anything science related at the moment,
Yeah.
right? So clearly looking at it, it's very clear that they're working on things like salvage, repair, and stuff like that. So they're highly likely.
Yep.
But if you think we're wrong on how the salvage would be, feel free to tell us in the comments, and feel free
Yep.
to correct us on manufacturer as well. But as I said, if you come out something that's completely off the mark, then yeah,
And as usual, just be respectful.
that's it.
If you are disrespectful, we might just totally ignore you. But we do read every single comment.
Yep.
We don't always answer every single comment, but we do read every single comment.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell as well.
Because the algorithm hates us at the moment. We don't know why, but it hates us at the moment. So please.
I think it's also a little bit of the time of year. It's a bit of a lull period, that quiet before the storm. August is one of the quietest months when it comes to Star Citizen content creation. It's a mix of the Northern Hemisphere being out and about in the summer months, and just not a lot of news as they hold it in the upcoming Citizencon. So yeah.
So lots of things to please help your local Star Citizen community content creators, because they need you. This was a community service announcement. Yeah, so,
we're not the only one.
Any of our channels you like, like, subscribe, hit their bell, because we all suffer via algorithm. So
yeah, it's not just us feeling the pinch at the moment. All right, with that, then he's been Algared. I've been
Execute.
We'll catch you in the next one.
Take care.